Well, back out on our walk and walking through trees. Now, someone pointed out something to me. A German. He writes books. I think I may put a link to him with this video, and he spends a lot of time, I think, in the Black Forest with trees and writing about trees and about nature. And he's a good read. But he pointed out something to me about trees, and his argument is simple. His thesis is simple. Trees talk to each other. Yeah, so, immediately I have problems with that, and a song pops into my head about whispering grass and trees, and how trees and grass shouldn't talk to each other. But you need to Google that if you don't already know what I'm talking about. I think it's called whispering grass. But he says trees talk to each other, and he says if you walk through woods, notice how trees hardly touch each other. I thought he was mad. Of course trees touch each other. You know, there's a wood, it's full of trees, they're all fighting for space, they're all fighting for light. Of course they'll touch each other, they kind of bump up against each other. But actually, if you look, trees hardly touch each other. And you really have to get out and look for yourself, because any picture I take, it's barely adequate, because you need to be able to see in 3D. But if you actually look, trees really don't touch each other very much. Now that's quite amazing when you think of their capacity to grow, and their capacity to expand and fill the space. But they tend to fill the space, but just that. Now of course you'll find trees that do go against each other. You'll find trees that do, some trees that just seem utterly oblivious to everything else, that's going on around them. But most trees barely touch each other. They find their own space. They're content with the space that they have. And of course, when a tree dies and falls, then the trees around it will fill that space. But they don't fill that space until it's gone. And it's more than light. You say, well, it's because there's a shortage of light and they're hunting for light and they don't get into each other's shadows. Actually, it's more than that. And if you have a look, you'll see that it's a lot more than that. And that's how trees survive. And his argument, I think it's a good argument, it's well proven, is that trees find their own space and stay within limits. Unlike human beings. Human beings are not like trees, and we would do well to learn from trees. There are limits on what we should do and what we shouldn't do, and what we can do and can't do, and what is right and what is wrong. Jesus' brother writes to a church. He says, what causes fights and quarrels among you? Don't they come from the desires that battle within you? You want something but don't get it. You kill, covet. You cannot have what you want. You quarrel and fight. You do not have because you do not ask God. And when you ask God, you do not receive because you ask with the wrong motives, that you may spend it on your pleasures. So he's talking about human beings, and he says, we're greedy and grasping. And rather than asking God and trusting God to give us what we need, we just take it, we grab, and we take. Well, trees don't do that. And I can only say, go for a walk in the woods, and go to where it's quite dense, and consider really carefully how many of the trees are actually touching each other. And if they're not, why not? Do they talk? Well, from me and my little friend on our little walk, have a good day. Ready for home? God bless you, keep you, cause his face to shine upon you, and give you peace.